In this video, we're talking all about this latest Disney quarterly earnings call. We're also going to talk about Hugh Johnston, the new CFO for the Walt Disney Company. Interesting pick by Bobby Iger. We're going to break it down up next. We have a fantastic panel today. We got Seymour Duck, the Italiano, and Ali Aloha is back up next on OG 55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG 55. We are breaking down all the financials today with the quarterly earnings. We're going to talk about this new pick of CFO, Hugh Johnston. But before we do that, I want to introduce my fantastic panel. We'll start right over here with Mr. Seymour Duck. Mr. Duck, thank you so much for coming back on the show, sir.
Hello. And thank you for bringing me back. I'm excited to talk about Disney earnings.
Yeah, no, it's always good to have you back. I love your insight. Seymour, if you could just let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, which I will be linking down below in the description.
Yeah, they could find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you, Seymour. And down below, we got the Italiano back in the house. George, welcome back, sir. Long time no see, dude. How long has it been? Like 12 hours?
12 hours. Yeah, that's a long stretch for us, OG.
Yeah, exactly. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, George.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Perfect. And last, but certainly not least, we have Alia Aloha. Welcome back on the channel, Alia. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
On Twitter's X, and Ali Aloha is the username. And
Perfect.
I'm here again. I tend to appear only around, I guess, the quarterly earnings or the annual.
I have to say, we were talking before
before
the show started, and it's been a while that me and Alia were actually on a show together. Like before, I think the last time we did it was before the strike, and now It's like,
oh my goodness, that's right.
Now we're back on, and now it's over. It's tentative.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. Exactly. Well, welcome one and all to this episode. This is gonna be a fantastic episode. Now, before we dive into the quarterly earnings, I wanted to dive into this new CFO. Now, she's technically replacing, he is technically replacing Christine McCarthy, right? So let's go ahead and bring this up.
And he doesn't start until next month. That's why he wasn't on the call today, because he technically doesn't start till next month.
Exactly.
Still the interim guy.
Right, we have the interim guy right now. This is Kevin Lansbury right now. It's an interim guy. But yeah, Disney taps PepsiCo veteran Hugh Johnston as CFO, a rare outsider in a top executive role. And I'll just go ahead and read this real quick to give a little background on this. Disney today named Hugh F. Johnston, PepsiCo CFO and vice chairman, as its new CFO, effective December 4th, as Alia mentioned. He replaces interim CFO Kevin Lansbury, who will return to his position as EVP and CFO of Disney's Experiences segment. It says here, Lansbury stepped in on an interim basis after former CFO Christine McCarthy left abruptly earlier this year for family reasons. The appointment is a rare example of Disney tapping an outsider for a key executive position and fills a key leadership role as Disney faces a number of challenges, financial and strategic. Seymour, I will start with you, sir. What are your thoughts on this choice for the next CFO of the Walt Disney Company?
I think it's actually pretty amazing what Disney has done. They brought someone outside, which they usually don't do. They brought someone who has an outside perspective, like you were saying, and he has a proven track record. So it's not like he was within the Disney company. He's not biased. He has that outside perspective. Also, they managed to get him while he was still working at Pepsi. I mean, like, this is stuff you see in TV shows, like Succession, right? You see these things. I'm like, okay, Disney, that's pretty impressive.
It's extremely impressive. He had a very successful run over at Pepsi, and Pepsi is a bigger company than Disney, believe it or not. And you're right, Seymour, for them to lure him in, that's crazy. And and we talked about this in the DMs, all of us, but this gentleman has connections to CNBC. He's on the CFO board, and this was brought to my attention via Alia. Thank you, Alia. But he's on the CFO board of CNBC. So he's got Comcast connections, and he's also got Nelson Peltz connections, because Nelson Peltz tried to get involved with Pepsi a few years ago. So this might be a little bit of 4D chess on Iger's part. People aren't really talking about that, but I mean, this guy has experience with basically two of Disney's biggest problems right now. Comcast, is a thorn in their side, and Peltz. But Alia, what are your overall thoughts on this choice for CFO?
It's interesting, and it is a promising one. I don't think I'm going to say anything new that you and Seymour haven't already said. I know George is going to add great things too, but it's very intriguing and promising. At first, I was like Pepsi, but then as I was starting, I was like, what? Especially because as everybody jokes, Disney has a history with Coke, and then there are people are like saying, "Oh no, they're going to replace Coke with Pepsi." And truthfully, I don't think he's going to care. I mean, I really don't think he's going to be like, "You must replace Coke with my former employer." I really doubt that's going to happen. And if Pepsi's introduced, we're going to maybe see both Coke and Pepsi. Anyway, I digress. It was great to see. That jumped out at me that he's connected with CNBC with their CFO council, and it looks like they really have to get involved and work with CNBC and thus Comcast, Universal people behind the scenes to be involved. So he knows the culture. He might be able to help with this final arbitration for Hulu and any other headache that arises with Comcast. And when there's connections, things just flow better. And then, I heard a train.
Oh, did you hear a train? Oh, here, hold on.
That would be me.
Is that you? Okay.
That's what I meant. I'm waiting.
I must have hit that track switch.
There we go. That's the official train audio.
And then he's crossed swords before with Peltz, so he might have an idea of little tricks Peltz tries. I mean, Iger's pretty smart, probably sees some of them coming from a mile away, but he might be like, Iger, you might want to look out for this angle. And with research, he is about the same age as Meyer and I'm having a brain fart. I can't believe
Tom
it.
Staggs.
Thank you, Staggs. And Dana Wilden's just slightly younger. So, it might have been too, promise you'll be in the running too for CEO. And I will say, if Peltz decides not to go forward, if Peltz decides to wage battle, and he helps to fight that off, and he makes things go really great with Hulu and that final purchase, he might even then become the front runner for CEO. So
he might. Disney has a pretty decent record with outsiders. George and I have talked about this many times on the channel, but Michael Eisner came from Paramount. Frank Wells. I mean, these were not Disney lifers. When they came on board, and they understood Disney though. Right. And I think Disney needs to kind of be more open to that outsider. I'm glad they're bringing him in, because I think you need to do that. Sometimes the person inside isn't always the best. Like we saw that with Chapek, and I don't agree with a lot of fans. I think there were some good elements to Bob Chapek. I don't think he was the one-dimensional villain a lot of fans portrayed him as, but he didn't really work out. But I think sometimes it's good to bring from the outside. I think sometimes that works even better sometimes to get that fresh perspective, But George, PepsiCo veteran Hugh Johnston, new CFO. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, I just have to say, now we know what the sponsorship is going to be for the next Expo. It's going to be D23 Expo, presented by Pepsi.
Exactly.
Coke is going to be like, what?
Like, we just got gypped.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, to everything that you all have mentioned, I think it's a good strategy move on Disney's part. I think moving outside of the Walt Disney Company to bring in a newcomer, kind of get a little bit of a taste of what they're used to doing, no pun intended, to just to kind of, because they know how to run a business from an outside perspective, so they could bring in something that Disney has never tried, but he has done over at Pepsi. So he might incorporate some of those fundamentals into the
Right.
Walt Disney Company and shake it up for the good, as you had mentioned, OG. That we talked about a lot. Michael Eisner, Frank Wells. I think that if this is done well, he could very well potentially be the front runner to move into the hot seat, so to speak, after Iger steps down.
Yeah.
And
no, he
and
might.
I'm curious to see too, if history could then also repeat itself, because I find it very interesting. And I know this may seem a little bit irrelevant, but yet very telling. There was an episode of the Behind the Attractions on Disney Plus that it's talking about a specific ride on one of the episodes, and I forget which episode it was, but they had mentioned about Michael Eisner and Frank Wells having that dual partnership
Right.
under the CEO banner, and then it harks back to Walt and Roy. So Disney actually recognizes that. For them to actually put that in their content and showcase that on Disney Plus, they could even potentially kind of have that in their mind where, could they add someone else to kind of go along with him to have that dual CEO partnership.
Oh, that's a possibility. It might be a dual role. You might have Kevin Meyer and this is Hugh Johnston guy running the company or something. I mean, that would be very interesting. I think I think Disney should be open to bold moves like that right now. I think they kind of need that. I think Wall Street is looking for stuff like that. I think just fans in general want that. They just want something. Bold moves and really put some energy, some enthusiasm back into the equation. So we'll see. I mean, I looked into his history and he has done very, very, very well for Pepsi. So this might be, and look, I've heard talk from various individuals about, well, what has Bob Iger done lately? Is Bob Iger really the great deal maker? Is he still a great deal maker? Bob Iger is still a great deal maker. As Seymour said, for them to pull this guy away from Pepsi and to bring him into Disney is a huge freaking deal. This is not right.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was like, no, I'm like, yes, like it's a win. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
It's a huge win. I mean, he
like
definitely
Seymour was saying, yeah.
Absolutely. See, you're absolutely correct, Seymour. I mean, for them to take him away from Pepsi and to do this is a big deal, and this is classic Bob Iger sort of deal making, I think. So it's interesting.
And for people to question Bob Iger and not knowing what he has up his sleeve, and this is what he has to bring to the table, he's pretty much saying to the folks, "Hold my Coke."
Hold my Coke. Exactly. Hold my Coke. That's great.
George is
that's great.
focused on Coca-Cola.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So we're gonna start with a little overall kind of perspective snapshot on this earnings call. And then we're gonna kind of break it down. We're gonna do like parks, and then we'll do like the studio stuff to kind of like compartmentalize it to make it a little organized, because there's a lot of information in this thing, and it's really hard to kind of tackle this. But this is from our friends over at CNBC. It says here Disney.
That's why Iger's like, I just got to get someone who can get along with them because they are not going away.
Right. Exactly. So it says here, Disney expands cost-cutting plan by $2 billion, posts better than expected profit. I'm telling you, there were a lot of people out there that were expecting a lot of doom and gloom in this quarter. It didn't pan out. Warner Brothers, maybe not so much, but Disney did pretty good this time around. It says here, Disney reported quarterly earnings after the closing bell. Profit topped expectations, but revenue came up short. Ad revenue slumped, but the streaming segment narrowed its loss. Okay, it says here that Disney earnings topped expectations thanks in part to profit at ESPN Plus. That's interesting. And continued growth at theme parks, but a decline in ad revenue weighed on the top line. Seymour, I'll start with you. Overall, what are your thoughts on that? In terms of ESPN Plus growth, theme park growth, decline in ad revenue. What are your overall thoughts on what they're saying here?
The decline in ad revenue, it's because linear is going down. It's just the way that's happening right now. But you see the streaming numbers it going up in the ads subscribers, right? So that will even out once you'll see with the next quarter. But I'm seeing with the overall is that there's progress. DTC losses is going down. The parks are still growing in revenue. You see ESPN numbers, right? They separated it, and you can actually see that it's a very profitable business.
So based on these numbers that they're reporting, Seymour, you think that ESPN is safe? Like they're not going to spin this off, right? I mean,
No.
you think it's
Even though they act like it's a separate company, no, they're not going to spin it off. It's too valuable for them. Because,
Yeah.
like I mentioned before in a previous video, they want to target the whole family, right? And if you take away that ESPN experience from the family, you're taking away that target audience of sports fans, and you don't want that in that family, right? You don't want that gone. You want to target the kids, the Disney core fans, the general entertainment, and the sports fans. It's for everyone, right? So that's why I think ESPN is very crucial to Disney's.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on with that, Seymour, and you can tell by the way Iger was kind of talking about it and everything. He definitely sees it as part of the future of his company.
And you'll see progress. Like it's good progress. It's happening. It's not. Some people wanted better progress. It's fast because people, they wanted the results to show us quickly, even though it hasn't even been a year for Bob Iger as CEO. But this is great progress. As you see in Warner Brothers Discovery earnings, that wasn't good progress.
No, you're right. You're right. And it shows that, like, look, yeah, Disney's still going through some hardships, absolutely, but it shows that whatever plan that Iger and his team have, it seems like you said, Seymour, it is working.
Exactly.
You know, this was not a bad quarter at all things considered, you know. Alia, what are your thoughts on this overall?
Tying into what Seymour said about at the conclusion about Warner Brothers, I mean, here Warner Brothers had one of the top film of the year, Barbie. And so I think it is showing how theatrical, although very important, is not as much of a priority for, you could say, a company like Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery to be really strong. And I think Disney realizing that, and who knows what information they got ahead of time about Warner Brothers Discovery, but I think that's why it looks like with those key building opportunities, why streaming profitability has been prioritized above, it seems, theatrical. And I mean, we see then, with Exhibit A, technically Disney didn't have the greatest strong theatrical, nothing, like, whoa, number one of the year. And yet they're stronger financially than Warner Brothers, which had the number one movie of the year. And I mean, Disney's big feather in the cap is the theme parks. So
right. Well, and you bring up a fantastic point, Alia, with that the theatrical might not be as big an important part of the overall pie as people kind of make it out to be.
But yeah, not huge like maybe we initially thought or perceived, just by the way, headlines about box office and all that make it seem to be.
Oh, and absolutely.
Then, and it was question mark about ESPN. I know there's, we've had like debates and DMs, including with others of the OG55 family of, are they keeping ESPN? But I think I agree with Seymour. This pretty much finalizes it. They're keeping ESPN.
Yeah, they're keeping it. And he even kind of walked back a little bit selling ABC. I mean, that even in this whole thing.
That shocked me. And he's not in a hurry to find. He wants, yes, a partner to help out with ESPN, but not in a hurry. He wants the right partner. So our partners. So
absolutely. And Alia, to your point, with theatrical, even Comcast Universal with the Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was $1 billion plus movie, and
Mario.
And Mario. And they still saw their studio division still took a hit in that last quarter. So you're right. It's important. I mean, it's not, but it's not everything. It's not the end all be all, What do you think, George, on this, in terms of, ESPN, the ad revenue, all that good stuff?
Yeah. Kind of going off what Alia said, that Seymour said.
We're Russian dolls here.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I agree. I feel like, and especially with the numbers that, WB had shown, it's what was it, 18%? Was it
their
18?
stock?
Yeah, was it 18%?
It tanked today. Their stock was
really.
It was
it was.
I can check that now.
I mean, it was just shit show, so to speak,
Yeah.
for them. And I think honestly, Iger, kind of can look at that and use that as his own template to say, we still got to move forward with our studio. Obviously, it's the headliner of the company. It's what started everything, but it could be of how the films and television is perceived. Again,
Right.
as Seymour said, linear network is pretty much a dying, thing right now. Streaming is the thing, and even though it's kind of rocky, I mean, it's still showing that potentially, if done correctly, which they had anticipated by the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, we will start to see those dividends. So as time progresses and they kind of fix those kinks and everything, especially that they announced with the full merger with Hulu. And for the people who have that Disney Plus Hulu bundle, they're coming out with a new app that has the conjoined both streaming services in December, which I'm really excited for because I actually have that bundle. So
Same. Can't wait to see what we'll find out. Yeah.
yeah, so that's I mean, again, great strategies on the company, great strategies on Iger. For ESPN, yeah, I feel like right now with the numbers of what it's showing moving forward, as Seymour said, it's ESPN was kind of already ingrained in the Disney family, so to kind of pull that and extract that right now, you're taking out a big chunk of
Right.
your audience because there's a lot of sports watchers out there, and there's array of many sports. There's football, there's basketball, there's baseball. So depending on you have your own individual audience within ESPN.
Right.
So it's like, why cut that if it's succeeding?
Yeah, and of that huge sports watcher audience, Seymour and I are not part of that. Right, Seymour?
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm not really
I'm-
either, but when they did that NFL Toy Story thing, I'm not gonna lie, I watched it and it was fun.
I
Because it
will.
was on Disney Plus.
I will watch a game if there's significance or importance,
Right.
to me with my team. But I just won't put it on just for the
Yeah.
sake of it. So they just lost 4% right there. So so they're already off to a bad start.
There you go. Exactly. So this is kind of interesting too, right? With the Disney Plus subscribers. So it says the company added 7 million new core Disney Plus subs from the previous quarter, bringing its total number of users to 150.2 million, including Hotstar. The streaming business also narrowed its losses compared with earlier this year. This is big. This is massive. Seymour, thoughts on this? Streaming, they're narrowing their loss. I think it's about just under like 400 million, I think, this last quarter, right? And
Mhm.
and they gained 7 million new subs. That's actually a lot higher than I was expecting. What are your thoughts, Seymour?
Like I mentioned before, it's good progress. If you look at the numbers, the only thing that went down was the Disney Plus Hotstar numbers, right?
Right.
Because they lost that sports rights with the crickets in India, and then there's rumors of them selling that off. So in the end, it evens out, but it's great progress. 6.4 million outside North America, 500K in North America. That's progress. I hear on X all the time, people boycotting Disney Plus. I don't want to watch this. I can't let my kids. These results are showing that that's not happening. People love Disney.
They do. They do. And I'm glad you brought that up, Seymour. I see a lot of this on X. I see a lot of it on YouTube too. I'm not going to name names, but you see a lot of this where it's like, this whole thing of like, people don't like Disney anymore. They're keeping their kids away from it. They don't feel comfortable. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. You see these numbers. I mean, a lot of these releases like Elemental, Little Mermaid, all that stuff, it's doing really good numbers on the streamers and what have you. It's obvious families are still very comfortable with the Disney brand.
Yeah.
It's just the landscape is changing.
And what I'm surprised about these numbers is actually that they all did the price increase, and the churn rate wasn't there. The growth rate exceeded the churn rate, and that's great for Disney. Their pricing power, the elasticity of Disney, is great.
You're right. The fact that they could raise prices and they didn't get that churn, that tells you right there that You want to talk power of the Disney brand right there. That's it, because that says a lot, that you can raise prices and people are still on board with that. Not only are they on board, but you're growing. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So it says here, Wall Street had expected Disney to report a total of 148.15 million subs for the quarter. The company touted the addition of theatrical titles such as Elemental, Little Mermaid, and Guardians Volume 3, as well as new Star Wars series Ahsoka as key streaming content during the last 3 months. Okay. Now, I actually watched Elemental. I fell in love with that movie. It's one of my favorite Pixar movies. I called George right away. I'm like, this movie is like this hidden gem. Like, what is this? This is a beautiful movie. It's amazing. It says here the company continues to expect that the combined streaming business will reach profitability in the fiscal fourth quarter of 2024. So they're sticking to it. Ollie, what do you think? A lot of people thought they might push that date back. They're not. They are sticking to that fourth quarter of 2024 for profitability. Did that surprise you?
No. Well, after hearing the figures today, at first I was like, because I know they weren't going to do subscriber forecast and all that anymore. And I thought tied into that would be maybe revising the forecast for profit. But so I felt nervous is too strong a word, just kind of confused, like, what are you guys doing? And then when I heard the figures today, because knowing what got Chapek fired was it was over $1 billion in debt, over $1 billion in debt. And now we're down to about less than 400 million to go until we're at break even. And then after that, it's profit. I mean, looking good. And then, yes, like pointed out, price increase, and there was no churn. I mean, the only churn was in India pretty much. And that was because they said goodbye to cricket, so.
Right, exactly, and they might be selling some of that off, from what we're hearing, So, any before we move on to parks, George, any thoughts on this before we move on?
Just again, I agree with Seymour and Alia. I mean, I think
you gotta
honestly,
go to George first with something.
It's like I was very optimistic, but kind of worrisome, going into the quarterly earnings, because again, I want Disney to succeed. I wanted to see progress. And as Seymour said, we are seeing it. So, I mean, this is the beginning. The end quarter of 2023 is the beginning of us going up to that upturn progressively in a positive way, that the company could get back on its feet from the unforeseen happenings of 2020 and up till now, So I'm very even now even more positively optimistic and glad to see that it's moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, and Iger even mentioned that, the cuts are behind us, sort of, or not behind, but we're moving now into building. We're building up now, and so he kind of recognizes what you just said, George. Where now we're going to start to build on this and start to grow. And, the bleeding has stopped, the stitches are in, and now we got to heal, right? That's basically what it is. So now to move on to theme parks, Disney parks. Go ahead, Seymour.
There was just one thing I wanted to add regarding, since we were talking about streaming.
Sure.
There were stats about how more than 50% of the U.S. streaming subs are choosing the new ad tiers. And I think that's crucial.
Use it more. They use it more than us that have ad free. I was like, who are these people?
And I think that's crucial, because when you see the ad dollars going down in a linear, it's going to go up once they get that one app experience. You can watch Elemental as much as you want, but that's a high budget movie, right? But if you get all that general entertainment coming in, when you have Disney Plus and Hulu as one, those ad dollars are going to be the ARPU for the users are going to increase when you have cheaper content getting the same ad dollars instead of spending more higher budget projects to get those same dollars. So I think
Seymour, you're in Canada, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you've mentioned it in a previous stream, and then I know Roger with What's on Disney Plus. He's in England, and with the so both of you have Star, and pretty much both of you have explained it's really. It just wait until we can have Hulu and integrate it, because there's just always going to be something on. It's it's almost like Netflix, and there's always something less than of a temptation to leave the Disney Plus platform. So I'm intrigued about that. I'm excited about that, to see how there's just going to be always something premiering and always something on and available.
Right. No, and like, Seymour said earlier on in the show, where, linear is kind of dying on the vine, and the streaming is sort of the going to be the replacement for that linear. The ad tier is very, very important. If they can make that advertising, they can make those advertising dollars through their streaming platforms, and people are signing up in droves for that ad tier. So that's pretty good. That is pretty good. So,
that goes to show I'm not a normie with that, because give me the ad free. I'll pay extra for it.
I'm the same way, Alia. It's like,
so this is
I
am like not a normie.
It's
here.
like I don't have time for that. It's like I just want to watch the program that I want to
watch. George, we are Disney fans here, and you got to take one for the team, buddy. And you're going to sit through those ads, and we're going to help Iger out with this, okay?
They do have coming up the password sharing enforcement, so that'll be interesting. It was a positive for Netflix. Everybody was worried about Netflix, and it worked out for them. And I think it's going to work out for Disney too, because they survived a price increase. So
yeah, I think they'll be fine. Absolutely. So it says here, Disney Parks post record $32.5 billion in revenue in 2023, which is very, very interesting. It's pretty good record. It says here, Disney Parks has just released its fourth quarter and full year earnings, posting a record $32.5 billion with a B in revenue for fiscal 2023, which ended September 30th, 2023. For the fourth quarter, Disney reported $8.3 billion in revenues. Here's a look at the past full year of revenue. So it says here that some key points. The increase in operating income at our domestic parks experience was due to, number one, growth at the Disney Cruise Line, resulting from increases in passenger cruise days and average ticket prices, which George and we can vouch for the Disney Cruise Line. It's an amazing experience. Oh my God, like life-changing almost. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Number two, an increase at
DVC
attributed to sales of the villas at the Disneyland Hotel in the current quarter.
That one surprised me.
Yeah,
out of the three, that one surprised me out of them all.
That's interesting.
Especially when you saw how Dis Twitter, or theme park Twitter or X, just constantly criticized it. But yeah, it goes to show you, normies,
Yeah,
they like what they like.
the reality is different than what the Dis Twitter is saying a lot of times. It says here, number three, lower results at our domestic parks and resorts, which reflected a decrease at Walt Disney World. Now that's interesting, right? Because we saw a decrease also at Universal Orlando with revenue, I believe, with Comcast's latest quarter. There's something going on in Florida right now with the tourism market. I in all honesty, I think it's more of a. It's what?
I was going to just say, good point, because Comcast had it, Universal had it too, because some would think maybe just it's some kind of effect with all the political, but no, you're right. It's just something about Florida, or maybe if it is political related to Disney, it's affecting the other parks too, because they are the top attraction, so
right.
Who knows?
And honestly, it could also be the factor of, again, not saying that Epic Universe is going to be the thing that's going to bring Disney to its knees, which I don't believe it will, but just for the sake of people being able to save money, everyone might be holding back till 2025.
Right.
So that way they could just kind of do like a one and done. So it's like, if we're going to go down for Epic Universe, that's when we can go to Disney and vice versa.
I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Do normies though know about Epic Universe? That's my question. Or at least those that frequently visit Orlando. I mean, you guys were recently there. Were there like billboards or advertisements about it coming up? Or
I'll just say this, Alia. If normies know about IKEA, they'll know about Epic Universe.
IKEA. Yeah, he's referring to the new hotel. It looks like IKEA. Kind of pretty much. But I didn't see, and we were back there at the end of July, early August. I didn't see any kind of advertisement for Epic Universe. Although, to be fair, George and I did not attend the Universal parks when we were down there. So.
Now, yeah, I physically didn't go in, and as OG said, neither did he, but my son did, and I actually asked him, and he said it wasn't overly packed, but it wasn't dead. He said it just felt like a normal, regular theme park day.
But did he see anything
about Epic Universe?
Oh, as far as like any advertisements? No, Nothing
Dang.
under that's like any like cross promotion or
See,
anything.
I wonder if normies even know about it. Truthfully.
I don't think a lot of normies do know about it, to be honest with you. I think it's a Diz Twitter thing, you know, and I see it every day on my timeline, but I'm in the bubble for sure. Like I'm in that nerd world.
We
Yeah.
all are. So.
We all are. So, but like, does a normie know about it? Like, if I were to ask a person at work, "Hey, have you heard of Epic Universe? What is going to be built over there?"
Well, that's what we're all going to do. We're all going to hit the streets of our neighborhoods, and we're just going to approach someone and say, "Epic Universe, are you excited for it?"
Exactly. Oh, that would actually be a pretty interesting show, man. Like Jimmy Fallon style. Like we just go to like Hollywood and like Highland.
I just put my gimbal together. I should do that, man. I should go like live with that shit, and it's like just go down my streets and
You're gonna be like the person on the street, you know.
What do you think? No, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't think the normies do. I think it's a nerd thing. I think we're all in this little thing, but yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. So it says here, higher cost attributable to accelerated depreciation related to the closure of Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser and inflation. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it says to a lesser extent, lower guest spending driven by a decrease in average daily hotel room rates. And last but not least, growth at Disneyland Resort due to higher attendance, increased guest spending, primarily due to higher average ticket prices and the higher cost due to inflation. Yeah, Disneyland, I was there. What was it on? I think it was on this past Sunday, I believe it was, or something. And it was packed. I mean, our parks out here are really busy, you know?
And if I could actually just add to that, there's a fellow on YouTube. He's a vlogger. If anyone knows his channel or doesn't, definitely check him out. Kyle Palo.
Okay.
He vlogs at Walt Disney World. And first off, just a great overall vlogger. You know, he goes with his family and everything. He's just a down-to-earth kind of guy. But I digress. So anyway, he was at Walt Disney World just recently. He just uploaded a video, and Magic Kingdom was packed. Like he said, it was like above normal, where it was when you looked at it, it almost looked like shoulder to shoulder. So
and that was recently?
That was 2 days ago.
That's interesting. So maybe it went through like a lull period this past quarter, but now people are back.
That's interesting. So I wonder if that'll show for the next quarter.
It might.
Or it could be, I know everybody kind of teased Iger about it. But, I mean, is the weather nicer now?
I don't know. It wasn't that great. The weather wasn't that great when we went in mid-July. But that's mid-July, you know. I was wet the entire time. Were you too, George? Like it was just sticky.
Oh yeah, it was like very sticky. You know, as I said, I've been down in Florida in July and August before, so it's like I know of it, but it's like you can never get used to it. But really quick, I know I'm going off the subject matter, but I just have to just say to Ollie and Seymour, when we were done, when OG and I were at Epcot, this was honestly the funniest thing. It just got like really dark all of a sudden. Like there was the clouds, gray clouds and everything. And OG was like just in awe of how it was like, it was bright sunny. And then all of a sudden it just got real dark. And then it just started pouring down rain.
I was going to say thunderstorm.
Yeah, it was just pouring down rain. And then in like 5 minutes, it was gone. Clear blue sky, sun was on. He was like just gobsmacked that like what is going on? And then these people, because they had to be locals, they just like turned to him and looked at him like to say, okay, he has to be a tourist. He has to be.
Well, we don't even get rain here. I mean, in California, we don't get rain at all, let alone like these weird flash storms where they come in for like 10 minutes. Like that was like the most bizarre thing. It was sunny and hot. We were chilling, drinking our beers, hanging out, walking around World Showcase, and out of the blue, it starts to pour rain, and then it goes away, and it's sunny again. I'm like, what? Okay.
That's normalish in Hawaii too.
now, Seymour, what are your thoughts on this? The parks post a record profit of $32.5 billion.
It's great. Looking at the revenue, it's up 16% year over year, still showing growth. The one thing I'm curious about, though, is if Florida is now stalling because of COVID. Florida parks were the first ones to reopen out of all the Disney parks. And I'm thinking that what has happened is that they have peaked ever since then with everyone trying to go on vacation. And now it's normalizing. Where compared
What's
to
it called?
California,
Revenge travel or something like that? Has a term like
yeah,
revenge travel or something.
Right.
yeah, and now I think we're seeing that growth in California and the international parks because they were open later.
That's interesting,
And we
Seymour. So
also
you're
have
saying
to,
there's a
and we also have to take in consideration too, with Walt Disney World, there was a lot of international travel just in general. But yeah, when COVID happened and the shutdown and the reopening, a lot of the international travel didn't come till later on. So we were basically just getting just the domestic travelers and the locals and what have you. And Disney World is not used to that. I mean, Disney World is used to the domestic and the locals, but they're also used to the international travelers. That's where they get a big bulk of their money. So where with Disneyland, it's more on the local side, where Walt Disney World on a much grander scope. Sometimes the bigger you are, sometimes the harder you fall with that, because that's where a lot of people travel.
interesting, very interesting points made all around. That's interesting because yeah, there was a lag in that revenge travel that Ollie was mentioning because California we were closed out here. The lockdowns were like 400 and some odd days. George, I think you have the exact. What is it?
412.
412. Yeah, Florida didn't have that. It was like a couple months, I think, or something. It was crazy. So yeah, there's going to be that delay. So that's interesting, Seymour. Excellent point. Excellent
Yeah,
point.
and because like if you, like George mentioned, international visitors going to the park, even though those parks were closed, they could have gone to Florida within the airport
Right.
easily, right? Even though they
Mm.
were in lockdowns, if they had the vaccines and all those checks in the airports good to go, they still got international travelers coming in as well.
Interesting. Yeah, very, very interesting. Wow. Yeah, wild. And so we'll see. We'll see how that pans out because if there is that delay, we might see that dip with Anaheim and the international parks later on. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. That's fascinating. So it says here that CEO Bob Iger reveals 4 building opportunities for the Walt Disney Company. It says here, our progress has allowed us to move beyond this period of fixing and begin the building our businesses again. So they stopped the bleeding, right? They stitched it up, and now we're going to start healing, is basically what he's saying. And so this is basically, yeah, exactly. So good news all around. So the first one is a path to achieving significant and sustained profitability in streaming. It says here first, Iger noted that more than 50% of new U.S. subscribers in the fourth quarter chose the ad-supported Disney Plus product, and that's what you guys were saying. And that is absolutely,
Just kidding.
that is absolutely crazy. It says, "quote We have the best advertiser technology in the streaming business globally, and we have just introduced new tools that will make this an even more attractive platform for advertisers, much as we've done with Hulu." So fantastic, absolutely fantastic. ESPN Evolution, which we also talked about. We touched upon that. Iger here says that we are already moving quickly down this path, and we are exploring strategic partnerships to help advance our efforts through marketing, technology, distribution, and additional content, Iger said. As we continue to develop our streaming business and the continued strength of ESPN relative to the backdrop of notable linear industry declines, demonstrates the value of sports and the power of the ESPN brand, which we talked about. So all around. It says here also that this is the third one, improving output and economics at studios. Now, this is a big one. The studios, the budgets are out of control. These films are like 200, 250. Indiana Jones is like 300 and something. So they're working on that.
Marvel's 220 to 270. I know it depends on that UK, as Seymour mentioned on another stream, that UK credit takes it down to like 220, but still.
It's going to be tough for the Marvels to make a profit,
Yeah.
I think. It's just it's a tough one, and I'm hearing not so terrible reviews for it. I've been on social media today, and some people don't like it, but a lot of people
actually,
do like
I'll get to go see it tomorrow with my son, so I'm curious to see like how it is. I'll definitely let you guys know.
Yeah, let us know. I'm very, very
Yeah,
curious.
I'm seeing it tomorrow too.
I
Oh, nice.
wonder if the strike had any effect with the promotion of the movie.
Oh, it had to. I would
yeah.
Because
imagine.
like you said, the reviews are showing that the movie is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I've seen a lot more positive buzz for this thing than I thought I would have, to be honest. So,
It currently has
yeah,
a 59% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not great, but it's, it could be a lot worse.
yeah, and that's a critic score too, because
Yeah.
like even like the Super
Audience
Mario,
score is what counts. So
right? Because like the Super Mario movie, I love that movie. I absolutely love. I know Seymour, you're a Nintendo guy.
Yeah,
And that was a great movie, and it had a similar critic score. So sometimes the critics are a little hoity-toity, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've been seeing some decent buzz for this thing, but we'll see. But it says here that according to Iger, quote, the need to strengthen the creative output of our film studio, which generates value throughout the entire company, end quote. Iger pointed out the company has 4 of the top 10 highest grossing films of the year at the global box office. See, this is the interesting thing. The highest grossing films, if they can get the budgets under control, then they're cooking with some gas here, because now they're making the most money and they're making the profit on it. It's just the budgets are holding a lot of the stuff back, it's just way too high. Alia, do you know how much the budget for Wish is, this animated movie coming out pretty soon?
200 million, I believe.
See.
And Baloney was talking about the reason why the animated with Disney, the budgets are so high with Disney animated features and Pixar, is that they're like the only studio left where their employees are still in the United States. So there's that higher salary. And then also go ahead.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I just want to say, and I have high hopes for Wish. I don't know why. I have this.
It's getting great buzz.
I'm having
There's
like
an excitement
some,
for it.
very positive vibes for Wish, and I really hope it does very well.
Well, historically, these musical fairy tales do very well. That's kind of Disney's wheelhouse. And you have a few good songs, which it seems like this movie does. I mean, the songs seem really solid. You have the quirky little princess, Asha. She seems like she's really likable and fun. You got the cute little Japanese star. There's a lot here that I can see that's gonna, resonate with families. I think it'll do well. I think the opening weekend it's set for like 50 million or something like that. We'll see. Elemental, I mean, had legs. That thing went on for a little while. It legged out. So if this movie is good, it could very much make its money back. And I think it's going to do banger numbers on Disney Plus.
And I believe they said that they're tracking almost where Coco was back in 2017.
Hey.
See, we're not too shabby, So yeah, I also have high hopes for that. Absolutely. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
there was just one thing I wanted to add, because we were talking about the costs and how Disney wants to do a lot of the cost cutting and focus on quality versus quantity. It's actually kind of coincidence that they just hired a new CFO that has a proven track record with these numbers.
That is interesting. If you can you elaborate on that? I did not know that. What do you mean by that?
Like Hugh Johnston, right? From Pepsi, right? They just hired him, and he's the guy that has a proven track record to bring in the numbers, to focus on the numbers, bring down the cost, but also bring back the net profit for that company. And I think this is crucial for the content as well within the company, because right now they've been spending too much.
Right.
Ever since COVID with Bob Chapek, they were spending too much within the content. They need to bring it down to normalized levels where they can profit. Even if like a movie doesn't do as great as before, at least if the budget is down, they will still make a profit.
100%.
And he probably assured Iger too he wouldn't be a jerk with creatives or anything like that. So.
Right. No. And you know what? I gotta give Hugh Johnston some credit though. I mean, and look, I mean, I know it's probably it's a statement. I don't know if it's like the secretary wrote it or I don't know. You just don't know with these big executives, but the statement that came from him when they announced him as the next CFO, I was pretty impressed by it, because Hugh acknowledged the importance of the Disney brand and how it's a rare kind of thing. It's a very special kind of entity. And I really, really love that I love that in his comment that he mentioned that, and he understands the importance of this brand. He's not just going in here and like, it's a business and it's just, he understands, hey, look, I'm going to do the numbers and we're going to do the numbers. Absolutely. But I also understand that this is something that people care about deeply, and it's a different kind of animal. And I love that about him. And that's why I think that, like, look, I think that if he works out, maybe he will be the next CEO. If he understands it on both the financial level, like what Seymour is saying, and he gets it on the creative level, or he understands what needs to be done on the creative side, he might be in an excellent position to be the next CEO. And he's younger than I thought.
Yeah. And Wilson Staggs are proof that just because, someone's a CFO doesn't mean they're like, the opposite side of creativity or anything like that. So
absolutely not. No. So these guys and gals can surprise you. Tom Staggs was the CFO, the money guy, right? And then he got moved to run the parks, and he did a fantastic job with the parks. George is a huge Tom Staggs fan. This guy, I mean, literally, he was the CFO, and then he ran the park, and he excelled in both. And so this gentleman, this Hugh Johnston, might be the same kind of guy where he can do both, and he understands both. And it's
Will's nurtured animated features and everything. So,
and if he does succeed, and he does do well above as good or even better as how Iger is kind of bringing this company back, and especially if he can kind of hit with Tom Staggs, I will personally fly myself over and I will buy him an ice cream bar.
There you go. There you go. So here we go. We're going to turbocharge growth at the parks and experiences. Now, I guess they renamed this division, which thank God they did. It was way too long before. It was like parks. Well, it was like parks, experiences, products, and yada, yada, yada. Now it's
inspired by the Walt Disney Company.
Yeah, exactly. It was just way too long. And now all it is Disney experiences. Okay, cool. Cut to the chase. That's awesome.
A good one.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Yes, perfect.
It says here that Iger spoke about Disney experiences segment and how the company has an opportunity to build it, quote, into an even bigger and more successful cash flow generation business. It says here, parks and experiences overall remains a growth story, and we are managing our portfolio exceptionally well. Now, it's interesting because in this park segment, they were talking about the 10 years of the 60 billion, right? And I mentioned in many, many videos, because a lot of other content creators were saying, well, if you take 60 billion and you spread that out over 10 years, it's only 6 billion per year. I said, they're not going to allocate it like that, though. You can't do that because there's going to be years they don't really invest that much. And then there's going to be years where they totally invest a lot. And so it's going to be allocated differently. And sure enough, he says it here in the beginning, it's going to be kind of a slow roll, and then they're going to accelerate toward the end of the decade. So that's very, very interesting. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, and I want to actually add to that. I'm glad you you brought that up, because a lot of people were going on social media saying, how is that turbocharging? We're going to get it at the end of, the 10-year span or what have you.
I'll be 40.
They're kind of
dramatic.
they're kind of looking at it in the wrong perspective, because if you look at it of how Disney's track record is with announcements to actually opening a project up. Take Pandora, for example. They made that announcement back in 2011. Pandora actually opened in 2017.
Right.
So basically what they're saying is, we're going to make all the announcements now, and it's going to end up making a profit at the end of the 10-year, because that's when they're actually going to be opened. So
or next year at the expo,
exactly. So I mean, the perfect platform, especially since they're going to have all us diehard Disney fans inside the Honda Center. I mean, 20,000 Disney fans were waiting, so I'm for sure they're going to have something waiting for us. They're not just going to put us in the Honda Center just to, showcase some automobiles. But anyway, so I think that is the mentality that how I see it of how it was announced, because you can't make an announcement and then in a year have that project open. It's just not going to happen. So this is going to be the time, as Alia had mentioned, with the expo and what have you, maybe even the next Destination D, they're going to start giving us a slate of things of when it's going to be opened. They may say, late 2027, early 2028, what have you. It's going to be that stretch of that 10-year. So by the time it comes to the back end of that 10-year, here comes the revenue coming in, because now people are actually going to go and spend their money to go do these things.
Right. No, 100%. And when you're talking billions of dollars, our friend Theme Park Wizard was concerned on Twitter that, oh, well, this means we're not going to get the Avengers e-ticket anytime soon. One attraction is not even going to be even $1 billion. So that is not a huge investment in the overall scheme of things. So you might see that in the first 5 years of this decade. That's for us, it's a cool thing, but it's a pretty small investment overall in the overall scheme of things for the Walt Disney Company. So that might be something we might see in just a few years, I think when they're talking about the significant, the big push towards the end of the decade, I think they're talking about like full blown lands and like
Disneyland Forward Phase 1.
Exactly, the $1 billion expansions, and that's what they're talking toward the end of it. But one ride, I mean, that I could definitely see that coming in the next few years. If they announce that tomorrow, they start building that, we get that in 3 or 4 years. That's the first 5 years. So we'll see. Yeah, a lot of fans were really discouraged, I think, by that, by that whole they're going to slowly ramp up. I'm okay with it. It's not like we haven't gotten a lot. I was talking to George about this on the phone today. It's like, Walt Disney World, you just got Cosmic Rewind, you just got Tron, you got the Moana thing. Where they're still completely renovating or reimagining Epcot, like the entrance and all that. There's things happening, we're getting stuff out here at Disneyland. It's not like we've gone through a drought with nothing.
People want a new land or a new theme park, I think. But like you guys have constantly said, there's just so much at Walt Disney World. They need to invest in each park and each land that they already have, not build something massive and new.
Yeah. So. And you just don't know what you need. People want them to respond to Epic Universe right away. It's like you don't know if you need.
They're waiting. They're waiting totally.
They're waiting. I said it in a video yesterday. Universal does not have a good track record with opening new parks. They just don't. The studio park in Florida was a disaster when it opened. Islands of Adventure really didn't gain any steam until Harry Potter came around. Volcano Bay kind of So I think Disney is rightfully so looking at that and going, okay, let's see how it does. Hey, look, they have Nintendo. Nintendo's a hot brand right now, like the hottest brand right now. It might do very well. And if it does, then Disney can respond. But why pour in money if you don't know if this thing doesn't do well, why preemptively pour money into something that you don't even know if you need? It doesn't make any sense.
Or it might help Disney, because you have a great theory. I think you and Georgia talked about that, how Disneyland might be having high attendance because Universal with its Nintendo and Mario, and people are like, oh, I'm out here and I'll go to Disneyland. And I mean, people don't see normies don't see it as competition. They just see it as, I'm going to do all of this. Right. So when Epic Universe opens in Nintendo, they'll probably be like, I do agree with you guys. I think they're going to be like, okay, 2 or 3 days at Universal and 2 or 3 days at Disney World. I kind of, or they might even stay at Disney World and then day visit at Universal. I kind of agree with you guys. I think Universal's going to kind of get hit with their own parks, especially because they're not close together. There's that distance apart, and it doesn't look very easy to get from one to the other. Who knows? They might with the Bright Link, but I don't know. It looks kind of like a lot to think about. And some people just don't want to rent a car. It's like, are you going to give me transportation?
And boy, do we know the troubles of renting a car, don't we, OG?
Oh, we know, George. We know. Our Walt Disney World trip, we had all kinds of rental car issues. But
see, sometimes you just want to be driven around. So.
Exactly. I know. Yeah, that was interesting, And those toll roads, you got to watch out for those toll roads, George.
They're the worst.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about that when someone else is driving. It's built into the cost, but I mean, you don't have to worry about it.
I know, exactly. That's the beauty of the Disney bubble, Just you take the bus, the monorail, you're good. You're good to go,
It's the ambiance.
Yes,
it's the ambiance. You just got to enjoy it. Just sit back, relax. You're on vacation. Breathe it all in.
Yeah, exactly. But you're right. But you're right though. Look, here in California, we had Super Nintendo World open back in January or February, and I heard from a lot of fans. Oh, well, when this thing opens, it's going to really hurt Disneyland, and it hasn't hurt Disneyland. In fact, both of these places, Universal and Disneyland Resort, have thrived since it opened. Disneyland has been very, very busy, as we're seeing in this latest quarterly earnings. They're doing very well, and so is Universal Hollywood. They're doing very well with Nintendo. So it seems to be kind of like the symbiotic, like,
Mhm.
thing that they're benefiting from. So to your point, Alia, it might happen that way in Florida. This thing opens, people go there for Nintendo and Donkey Kong and all that good stuff, and it brings people into Disney World. And both of these resorts are healthy and thriving, and that's the ideal situation, I think. Go ahead, Seymour.
And I think honestly,
George.
really quick,
Seymour?
really quick, and I think Universal kind of shot themselves in the foot by releasing that concept art for those newer hotels right before Disney's quarterly earnings, thinking, maybe they can kind of get like a little bit of a one up on them, so to speak. Like, let's throw something at the public like right before the quarterly earnings, but I don't think they kind of anticipated on a little bit of the lackluster that concept art for those hotels was going to get. So I
Including
feel like
the words Galactic Star Cruiser.
yes, yes.
Ouch.
When you compare something brand new that's not even open yet to the public, and you're already comparing it to the Galactic Star Cruiser, it's shot dead in the water.
It just, that whole thing, I'm telling you, and this is the big issue with Epic Universe, and I've been saying it for a long time. The fan community, the expectations are way too high. They think this thing is gonna basically walk on water, essentially, like the theme park equivalent.
The second coming of Jesus. I think that's.
Yeah. Hey, but I will say though, if this thing could turn water into wine, I'm there.
There you go, George. There you go. Hey,
Seymour, were you going to say something?
Go ahead, Seymour.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I'm not that excited for it. Like I mentioned before, right?
And you're a
go to
Nintendo
Universal.
fan.
Oh no, it's because I'd rather go to Universal Studios Japan.
Hey, that has like the really awesome
There you
one.
go.
Yeah,
The first
exactly.
one, the original.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna spend my money and go on a trip, I'd rather go there. It's already there. It's already been done.
Yeah.
And they're also gonna get the Donkey Kong ride. So
Hey, if you get a piece of meat, you might as well have a filet mignon than a McDouble.
Yeah, right. No, I know. Well, Japan does everything better, whether it's Disney or Universal. They just do. I mean, it's amazing what they do over there. So I don't blame you, Seymour, on that. I mean, I would, I would choose the Japan park over that as well. Absolutely. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the whole thing pans out. But interesting earnings call today. Very, very interesting. It wasn't the doom and gloom a lot of people were predicting.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
But the curiosity of the question is, because there's indication this morning that Peltz was going to wait to see what Iger said or any press releases. So what do you guys think? Do you think Iger convinced Peltz to back off?
I think he's going to hold off a little while longer. I think if the earnings would have been less than anticipated,
Right.
where there was a drop in numbers significantly, I think it was just enough that it's showing progress, where I feel like that Peltz is going to not back off completely, but I think he's just going to put himself in neutral and just kind of hover himself a little bit until he sees how things progress in 2024.
Well, it's interesting too, because Peltz the first time around was very vocal. He jumped in, he made a website, he was on every financial network. The whole thing was very loud, This time around, there's movement, right? He's buying more stock, he's investing more, but he hasn't said anything. He's laying in the shadows a little bit. So I feel like he's a little iffier this time around, and I don't really know what can he bring to the table that Iger is not already doing. What's he gonna say? What's he gonna do? What's he gonna propose that the company's not already doing? So I don't really know. I kind of feel like today, I think it set him back a little bit, just a little bit. The earnings call was fairly good, pretty good actually. And I mean, unless he's got some groundbreaking, crazy idea to make streaming more profitable, before Iger is claiming it's going to happen. I just don't see what else he can really bring to the table. What do you think, Seymour? Did this fend off Peltz a little bit, or do you think that
I think it did, because a lot of the tactics that he does is to scare the company in order to bring in the ideas that he wanted to. For example, the aggressive manage of the cost basis. They're going to cut costs from like 2 billion to 7.5 billion. And that's what he wanted. Peltz wanted more cost cutting.
Well
Things
said.
like that. That's what it feels like to me. Because the first time around, right, he backed off once he saw results coming in that was going his way, and now it's showing again progress of that he's doing it. So I don't feel like there's anything to bring on the table if the table's already being served, right?
Exactly. Yeah, dinner served. It's on the table. Like, what are you going to do now? That's a great point, Seymour. Fantastic point.
Dinner's on the table. Just pour that cherry Pepsi right in the glass, and you're all set.
There you go. Exactly. Pepsi. It's got to be
Speaking of
Pepsi.
Pepsi, bringing Johnston on, who's crossed swords before with Peltz and did very well, and fending him off. And then with these results, I think we'll know more, especially if Peltz responds like tomorrow or within this week. But if it's silent this week, I think, that means he's pretty much backed off. Like you said, he's always going to be hovering, like, ooh, like a little specter, like, are you behaving yourself, Iger? He's always going to be there. He's going to be like a mosquito, annoying Iger.
And honestly, despite of
how
annoying that could be, that might kind of work
in
favor. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, if they kind of know that they have this little parrot on their shoulders kind of squawking into their ear.
That's a good metaphor. Little barky dog nipping at your ankles.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. It does. It kind of keeps them on their P's and Q's. From what we've heard, the board is pretty much all in for Bob Iger. So it's good to have that sort of opposing force from the outside, sort of keeping them in check. It's always good, whether it be a company like Disney or like government, right? You want that checks and balance a little bit. I think it creates a better outcome for everything. So yeah, I agree with everybody on the panel. I think I don't think that Peltz is going to really, I think it's fended him off for a little bit. We'll see if things drastically go for the worst, like, in the next few months or whatever, next quarter, then maybe he'll be back. But yeah, I think we're okay for now. He seems iffy to begin with because he hasn't really said anything. So the iffiness on top of the good quarter, yeah, I think we're okay right now. So I was actually very encouraged today by this earnings call. I think we're moving in the right direction. So that's very positive.
Yeah. I think, honestly, Seymour has been saying it best throughout the whole entire video, and that key word is progress. And I feel like that's what we're doing. And Walt Disney himself was all about progress. I mean, they're an attraction literally based on progress. And, and I guess all we can really do is look at and say that there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
There you go. So on brand, George. So on brand. Yeah, hey, the Sherman brothers, the geniuses, absolute geniuses.
I'm trying to be careful. I don't want you copy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. But I love having you all on. Seymour, Alia, George. Obviously, I love you guys. We have the best. You
might want to edit that part out.
No, you're good.
No, you're good.
You're good.
You're absolutely copyright thing. It's crazy.
No, you're fine. Hey, if I could play this.
Give me the drop some money, dropping on my money, drop some money.
With no copyrights, I think.
Good point. Because that's like clear, whereas I was like a little off key and doing my little jazz thing of it. So
yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. But Seymour, thank you so much for coming on.
And thank you for inviting me.
We love your insight, Seymour. You are always welcome back on. We love talking with you. If you could remind everybody at home where they can find you on social media, sir.
Yeah, you could find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck.
Perfect. And his information will be down in the description below. Follow him on X. He is he's a regular contributor here on OG55, and we love his insight. He's fantastic on Twitter. Big Nintendo fan too. So if you're into Nintendo, he's your guy. And right below him, we got Alia Aloha. Alia, if you could remind everybody where they could find you on social media.
On Twitter's X, and it's Alia Aloha. I've been a little a big picture, you could say, with concerns about the world, but I will now focus on Disney since I've done this video for a little bit. But just a FYI, not really a warning because you get what you get, but just an FYI.
There you go. Yeah, I mean it's Alia's personal account.
Apologies.
So no apologies needed.
I'm not with a blog or anything. Exactly.
Yeah, it's her personal account, so she dips into Disney a lot, but she dips into some world stuff too, and that's fine. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So check her out. I will also be linking her Twitter account down below, and we got Citrus George, the Italiano. George, if you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me now on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. There we go. Well, thank you all so much for watching today. Comment down below with everything that we've talked about, whether it be Hugh Johnston as the next CFO, the quarterly earnings, the parks division, record-breaking division for that, or experiences as they call it now. Streaming.
Good name now. Good name. I agree.
Yeah, much better than the parks and streaming. What was it before? Parks, products,
And experiences.
Yeah, it was just too much. So experiences fits everything. That's perfect.
I feel like everybody messed it up in meetings, so Iger's like, okay, it's got to go.
Yeah, it was just too much. That was a leftover Bob Chapek thing. Chapes,
Yeah.
you weren't the worst thing in the world, but that wasn't your greatest idea.
Yeah.
So
Parks,
definitely-
products, experiences inspired by Moana.
There we go. Exactly. But comment down below with any thoughts you might have on everything we talked about today. Thank you so much for watching OG55. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye, everybody.